Hello everybody, this is TipTop MTG here today with another Magic the Gathering video. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down a bunch of custom cards that I made that focus around the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. For those of you who don't know, this is a small part in a very large project I'm doing where I'm taking every single MCU movie and turning it into a Magic the Gathering set. Now, these are all going to be combined into one large card pool, and it's going to be pretty awesome. Now, normally what I'll do is I'll take items, characters, and events from the movie and turn them into cards. And it's really awesome. In this video, I'm going to be covering ones covering Guardians of the Galaxy. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I will not be able to show you all of the cards, like some of the event-based cards, or not some of the items, some of the ships. So, if you want to see all of the cards, I'll leave a link in the description where you can see all the cards from all the movies I've done so far. Now, you don't have to have watched the previous videos to watch this one. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information. Typically, heroes are red, white, and blue. However, since the Guardians are a little bit off of heroes, they are red, white, and green, and then villains generally fall in the red, black, and blue colors. Also, each movie features like a kind of mechanic that a lot of things feature around, and in this one, it is the Cell mechanic, which I will talk about when we get to a card with Cell. Now, what I first want to do is I want to start by breaking down some of the main, characters. I want to break down the actual Guardians. So getting into this, I want to break down Peter Quill. Peter Quill is a 5-cost red and white legendary creature human guardian, which is a new subtype so that cards can reference guardian and, give you a bonus. You control 3 or more guardians. Either way, he's a mythic rare 4/4, and he says if you control 3 or more guardians, whenever you would create any number of credit tokens, you may instead create that many +1 instead. So the idea here is that credit tokens, these are something brand new that have been created for Guardians, because a big part of the theme of Guardians of the Galaxy is that they're not actually heroes, they're just doing this for the money. And that's actually why he doesn't have the hero type. Now, what is a credit token? Well, it's similar to a treasure token, in the fact that it taps for mana, but what you can do is you can tap it and sack it to add colorless mana, or you can tap it and sack 2 credits to create colored mana. So you can, if you need colored mana, you can make it, or if you just need to cast high CMC spells with lots of generic mana, you can also do that. He also says tap, pay 3, and it says sell target non-token artifact you own and control. And you might not know, sell, what is that? Well, that is a new mechanic specifically designed for the set, because a big part of it is, I'm going to get this to sell it to the highest bidder, and then I'm going to make money off of it. So I wanted to encapsulate that in a mechanic. And before we move on to the rest of the Guardians, I want to talk about a card named after the mechanic, which of course is sell. So this one just says sell target non-token permanent you control. So the reminder text is quite long. It was very hard. I wanted to give you this multiplayer mechanic where you could actually sell your stuff to your opponent. So it says exile the targeted permanent. Each opponent chooses a number. You choose up to 1 target opponent. The exiled card enters the battlefield under the control of the targeted player. Create a number of credit tokens equal to the number that player chose. If you did not choose a player, create a credit token. So the idea here is, let's say I have the Soul Ring. I don't really want it. I'm going to sell it to somebody. And what they can do is that everyone's going to basically bid on it, and you can pick whatever bid you like the most, and then they get control of that item, and you get a certain amount of credit tokens. And now, technically, if you're teaming with someone, they could say 11 million, and you could create 11 million mana, which, can be kind of busted. But in a 2-player game, you have to really think about, what if they don't want it? Then they could say 0 credits, and you don't have to pick them. You don't have to pick a player. If you don't, you just sell it for 1 credit. So you do run some risk of everyone being like, I don't want that, and you only getting 1 credit. But with someone like Peter Quill, whenever you would sell something, you actually get 1 more than whatever the number they said was. Now, I want to talk about Gamora, who has another different type of token. She has scrap tokens in her kit, or in her abilities, which are basically just artifacts for the sake of being artifacts. But you can do some really interesting things with scrap with some other cards. So she is a 5-cost black and green, which is to kind of show how she was a villain at first, so you could play her in the villain colors, or you could play her in the hero colors. And she is a 4/4 with menace, and whenever she attacks, you may have target opponent gain control of target non-credit artifact you control. If you do, scry 2, then draw cards. You can give them control of your artifacts. So in this one, it's the orb, and then you gain a little bit of a bonus from that, but she can also tap to create a scrap token. If you control 3 or more scrap tokens, Gamora gains protection from either blue or black until end of turn. It can be used defensively. This can be used to generate artifacts for an artifact-heavy synergy deck, or she can generate scrap tokens, and then when she attacks, she can then give the useless artifact to someone who doesn't care about artifacts, and then scry and draw a card. So this card is overall really powerful. It could be a really fun commander. Next, I want to talk about Groot. So Groot is a 3-cost 2/2 with reach. It's a legendary creature, Groot Guardian, and it says at the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on Groot. If Groot has 4 or more +1/+1 counters on it, create a scrap token. So again, we're seeing the Guardians like to create scrap tokens, and then sacrifice Groot. Creatures you control have hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So this is supposed to represent that he does this like heroic sacrifice thing at the end, and he's actually one of the few cards currently with flavor text. Next, we have Drax the Destroyer. He is a red and green legendary creature guardian, 4/4 with trample, and it says he must attack each combat fable. In the movie, he's like hell-bent on getting like revenge for his family's death, so he has to attack each turn, and whenever a creature he controls dies, he gets +2/+2, and you may have him fight someone. So this was to represent how when his family dies, he gets so mad, he just wants to fight something, he wants to kill whoever killed his family, and so he's going to do that if you kill one of his new family now. So a very interesting card. I feel like it's very flavorful. Next, we have Rocket Raccoon. He is again a red and a green legendary creature, half-worlder guardian. He's a 3/1, and he gets +1/+0 for each scrap you control. He is often seen like making things out of like nothing. And then if he has power 6 or greater, he also has first strike. So if you control 3 scrap, he basically has first strike. And then whenever Rocket Raccoon attacks, create a scrap token. So again, we're seeing more people creating scrap tokens, and so we see this big amassing of scrap tokens, which then can be done with, you can use those for things within the set. Now, I want to talk about the main villain, which is Ronan the Servant. So it's Ronan the Servant. It's supposed to represent him under Thanos' control, and it's 3, a blue and a black for a legendary creature Kree villain. He has Menace, and he says, whenever you gain control of an artifact an opponent controls, put a victory counter on Ronan's Servant. So this is not the first time we've seen victory counters. I think Red Skull uses them. And then if he has 3 or more victory counters on him, transform him. And then you can pay X and tap him to gain control of target artifact with converted mana cost X until end of turn. So you can kind of just steal it temporarily. For instance, the Orb, which is a very important thing to the story. You can, this is supposed to represent him stealing it. Then he turns into a 7/7 indestructible death touch hexproof, and he says whenever he deals combat damage to a creature, if it would die, exile it, and then it says all creatures able to block him do so. Why is that such a big increase? First off, your opponent has to be playing enough artifacts to be able to steal them, and so it's kind of hard to get him to flip, and like you just really want to kill Ronan when he's in his servant form before he basically powers himself up with the Power Stone. This is a very powerful card. Yeah. Next, we have Nebula, who is still seen as a villain throughout this entire movie. So she is a blue and a black legendary creature villain, and she's a 1/2, and it says she gets +2/+1 for each artifact attached to her. Makes sense. She's a human, or a Lufomid, but with artifact basically enhancements, and as long as she has 4 or more artifacts attached to her, she's an artifact in addition to her other type and has death touch. Very powerful. And then you can pay 2 and tap her to make target artifact an equipment and attach it. So you can turn anything. You can turn a soul ring into an equipment and attach it to her, and then that would buff her up. So very powerful card there. Next, we have Korath the Pursuer, which is a 5-cost legendary Kree villain. Whenever it attacks, target attacking Kree or villain gains death touch until end of turn. So you can kind of just help your villains. And then tap target attacking villain gains indestructible until end of turn. So if he doesn't actually, so you can either make him attack and make your offense stronger, or you can leave him on defense and make your villains not susceptible to damage. So very cool there. Now, I want to move into the Nova Core. So, the Nova Core, at least in my set, is a mono-white cycle of cards that care about when you target them. Here are just a couple of them. They're not that interesting. Mono-white's kind of hard to design around, and I mean, they are a big part of the movie, but they do not have that much screen time within the movie, so I'm just going to quickly flash those up. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the Collector, which is a very interesting card. Now, he costs 9 and Wooburg, and he says he's a legendary creature, Elder, 6/6, and he says the Collector costs 2 less to cast for each card type among permanents you control. So if you control a creature, now that 9 is now a 7. And then if you control a land, now it's a 5. And so his price quickly drops. Now, he can't get rid of that Wooburg, so you do have to pay Wooburg. But he'll eventually say, whenever a permanent goes to the graveyard, you may return it to the battlefield under your control. So if you have to discard it, if it dies, if it's milled from your library, all of that will just send it right onto the battlefield. This also works if a permanent your opponent controls goes to their graveyard. So if you're milling them or killing their creatures, it also goes to your battlefield. So that's pretty crazy. He is a very powerful card. We also have a couple other interesting cards. We have Yondu, who is a very essential character within the story. He's a 4-cost red and black legendary creature Ravager villain, 4/4 with reach, and whenever he enters the battlefield, create a scrap token. Again, they are very similar to the Guardians in that way. And whenever a creature you control dies, you may sell target non-token artifact you control, so you can't actually sell scrap tokens with him. Also have something like The Job, which is supposed to represent their, like, goal. And so it's an enchantment. It says when it leaves the battlefield, sell target non-token artifact you control. So you don't actually get to sell it when you cast it, but if you like sacrifice it for some reason or someone destroys it, then you get to sell something. So you don't get to do it until the job is like destroyed or done. I really like that one. Or like Shady Deal allows you to sell target non-token permanent you control. You lose life equal to the number of credits you create this way, so it allows you to just sell things really easily, but you do lose life, so if your opponent says 11 million and you choose it, you're going to take 11 million damage. Now, sagas within Magic are generally trying to tell a story, and I am trying to make a set based off of story, so I feel like it's a perfect place to throw in sagas. So, the Nova Truce is a saga. It's a 6-cost mono white saga, and it says creatures, so when you drop it in, creatures you control get +0/+5 until the beginning of your next turn. So they're setting up their wall. Until the beginning of your next turn, creatures can't attack, so you're stalling your enemy. And then until the beginning of your next turn, creatures can't attack you. And so now your wall is fully up, you can attack, but they can't attack you. And so this is how the Nova Truce was supposed to go. Now it was, like, their ships did end up getting destroyed, but like, they are slowly building up the wall. Okay, now defenses. Now no one can attack, and now you're clear to attack, and no one can attack you. Powerful card, very thematic, and I really like it. The Fall of Ronan, which is a 5-cost mono black enchantment. It says each player discards a card. Then tap target creature you control and target creature you don't. So, you know, each player discards a card. Everyone kind of just loses. Like, you're about to lose. And then what happens is you tap everything. So you tap like a creature of yours and a creature of them, which is kind of like Peter Quill dancing to distract Ronan. And then all creatures lose hexproof until end of turn, exile target creature. So that ability can actually kill Ronan. It also allows you to get around, like, gods, and, you know, it allows you to kill a lot of threats because you're getting rid of hexproof and you are getting around indestructible. So very powerful there. Now, I do want to talk about one more thing, which is the ships within the set. The ships, I stole a mechanic from Star Wars The Gathering called Spaceflight because it made so much sense within this context. It's basically Spaceflight is like unblockable, but it can be blocked by other things with Spaceflight. So it's kind of like ship battles. And so some examples of those are the Dark Aster, Elector, the Milano, the Necrocraft, the Mining Pot, and the Star Blaster. So those are just some examples of ships. I'll flash those all up on screen. Again, if you want to see all of the cards, I'll leave a link in the description down below. And then I also want to talk about Orb is a very important part of the entire, I mean, even just the entire MCU, and it offers this dynamic gameplay where when you create it, you can either sell it to an opponent through the Orb's mechanics, or you can, you know, use power to unlock the orb and use the Power Stone. And when you finally use the Power Stone, you get this really powerful ability to keep wiping the board, but your stuff can stay on the battlefield if your opponent doesn't, like, sacrifice themselves, basically. So it's a very interesting card. So that's going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed, hit that like button and subscribe. If you have any ideas for cards that I missed, like if you look in the thing and you're like, hey, you didn't make a card for this, let me know. If you have ideas for mechanics I can do, or if you have any feedback on any of the cards, please let me know in the comments down below. These are always really fun to make, but they're also a lot of work, so I hope you enjoyed. See you guys in the next video.